People may not know, but one of the very first computers weighed 25 pounds. And that's just absurd to think about, having to, if it was portable, having to total, around a 25-pound computer would be so unpleasant and just not help at all. It would be so unpleasant to think about carrying 25 pounds to the library, to your home, to, different things, to the office. Nobody would want to do that. So they wanted to revolutionize the idea of being able to have a personal computer that you could transport, but that was also user friendly. They wanted to make it able for all generations to be able to use anything that could be easy with no assistance. So Jobs and Wozniak started out building the Apple I, like I said earlier, in Jobs' garage, and they sold it without a monitor, keyboard, or casing, which they decided to eventually add on 5 years later in 1977. Then they came out with the Apple II, which revolutionized the computer industry with the introduction of the first ever color graphics. So, them as two men just sitting around in Steve Jobs' garage, they came up with such a global phenomenon that I don't think they realized at the time was going to go on to impact the world in the way that it did. Something as simple as a computer that started off with no monitor, no keyboard, no casing, grew on to become a $1 trillion company that did not stop with computers. And the sales jumped from 7.8 million, in 1978 to 117 million in 1980, which was the year that Apple went public. So the next question is, what was your company like in its first few years of operation? So Apple in its first few years of operation, it was relatively simple compared to, different devices that we have today. The Apple I was a pioneering product in the realm of personal computing, obviously. And the Apple I was a single board computer that came with a 6502 microprocessor and 4 KB of memory and a 40-pin connector for expansion, which made it more accessible and easier to use than other computers available at the time. Like I said, they wanted to make it user-friendly for all people of different generations and ages to be able to use. And I think this is why, Apple has been such a monumental company up to this point, because anybody can use it. And it started back from the very first computer in 1976. So the legacy, as of Apple I, while Apple I may not have been a commercial success, it only sold around 200 units. It was still the beginning of the legacy that would still shape technology. So I think, they probably didn't expect it to, sell vigorously in the very beginning, but little did they know the company would go on to have great and major success. And the release of the Apple I signified the birth of Apple as a company, and it will go on to create groundbreaking things like Apple II, Macintosh, the iPhone, the iPad, the smartwatch. And Apple revolutionized technology starting back in 1976. So the next question is, what innovations did your company use to make it different from its competitors? Now, Apple's competitors, you have some of the biggest, they go against some of the biggest competitors in the world, from Samsung to Google and different things like that, which, although they are great companies, I think Apple is in its own lane. And, they try to, it's not necessarily compete, but stay ahead of the game as far as technology when it comes down to different companies. So Apple devices are renowned for their design aesthetic and attention to detail. Their tight integration between hardware and software gives the system's performance, different advantages over the competitors. Apple rose to its position as a market leader by correctly positioning its products. They didn't invent personal computers per se, graphical user interfaces or MP3 players, smartphones, smartwatches, or tablets. Instead, they produced the first versions of these products that were refined, easy to use, and well designed. They were able to take things that were already in place, and pretty much rebrand them and make them new. They refined them. They, took what that was and changed it, made it different. They made it more user-friendly. They made it more aesthetically pleasing, gave it more features, gave it more things to do that, could help us in our everyday to day life. In 76, I don't think that, that Steve Jobs